The Great Pyramid of Giza, its creators and function, are full of mystery and wonder to this day. In time, Cleopatra lived closer to the moon landing than the construction of the Great Pyramid. The Old Kingdom Egyptians were highly proficient in astronomy, engineering, logistics, and mathematics, while also having passion for pottery, sports, games, and magic tricks. Measuring over 2.5 million cubic meters in volume and 147 meters in height, the Great Pyramid was the tallest structure in the world for thousands of years, until the Eiffel Tower was constructed. The Lincoln Cathedral briefly surpassed the record, but crumbled in less than a century after being built. The Old Kingdom began with the third dynasty of pharaohs over 4,600 years ago, and established a culture that endured and prospered for thousands of years. Egyptians created an artistic style, religion, and system of government, ruled by a pharaoh with absolute power. In order to understand Egyptian culture and society in the Old Kingdom, we must dive into when the Great Pyramid was built, how it was built, and why it was built. We will cover the pyramid's interesting features, magnificent scale, material makeup, precision, and theorized functions.
The pyramid is said to be built in the 4th dynasty for Pharaoh Khufu as a tomb over 4,700 years ago. In order to fit the time frame, Egyptologists agreed that the pyramid was built in about 20 years. In a 10-hour workday, that would require the quarrying, moving, cutting, and placing of each stone block every 2.5 minutes. This does not account for the time it would take to plan such a complex project. The single structure exceeded 2.6 million cubic meters and is estimated to contain 2.3 million separate blocks of stone weighing between 2.5 and 80 tons each. It is the most accurately aligned structure in existence by facing true north with only a 3/60th of a degree of error. The accurate positioning indicates the vast knowledge and study of astronomy, engineering, and mathematics Egyptians had acquired. Great effort was leveraged into the precise alignment for a significant reason which will help us understand the function of the structure and cultural significance at the time. The precise placement of the 2.3 million blocks is incredible. The structure is made of more than 200 layers and each block had to be placed down to a fraction of a millimeter. Not even a razor can fit between them. The blocks fit precisely to 1/50th of an inch. The foundation is 755 feet wide at its base and covers more than 13 acres, yet is somehow level from one side to the other with an error of half an inch. Such precision was not possible or repeated until a couple decades ago through the use of laser leveling. The majority of the pyramid is made of limestone, which was originally polished, flattened, and smoothed to get the appearance of a seamless, bright white pyramid sparkling in the sun. However, granite lines the internal passageways, grand gallery, queen's chamber, and king's chamber. Egyptians used a very particular type of granite called rose granite and transported it over 500 miles from Aswan. It is estimated that the average man is capable of pulling 150 pounds, meaning a 58-ton block of granite would require 172 men and 4 files of 43. The Mohs scale of hardness is the measure of just how hard a material is. The mineral hardness of the building materials is extremely important to note because of how difficult and seemingly impossible it would have been for the precise cutting and shaping performed. On the scale, rose granite is a 7 and limestone is a 3.5. The only tools available during the Old Kingdom were made of copper and bronze, which are a level 3 hardness. Scientists theorize that Egyptians used sand or slurry as an abrasive alongside a copper saw to cut through granite and then proceeded with chisels to fine-tune the shape. The following experiment was conducted to test their hypothesis. While the process certainly does have an effect over time, they found it took a full day to penetrate just a few inches into the material. The chisels and saws they used were greatly damaged during the process because of the granite's hardness. Furthermore, it doesn't explain how you quarry these large pieces of granite out of the ground or shape them with astonishing precision. Mind you, a saw of this size and with teeth has never been discovered in Egypt. Furthermore, the grinding marks left by the experiment saw does not match actual cuts found around sites in the area that were never finished. Corundum is a very hard material with a hardness of 9 to 9.5. You will find that some of the oldest objects ever found in ancient Egypt are actually made of this hard material. The Great Pyramid has remained mysterious because there are very few records about it in ancient history. Despite the tens of thousands of hieroglyphs located all around Egypt, not a single one depicts the Great Pyramid nor how it was built. Inside the Great Pyramid, the walls are bare without hieroglyphs, unlike other buildings and tombs in the area. No mummy, remains, or artifacts have ever been discovered inside. To this day, the function of the Great Pyramid is still unknown. Without a doubt, its function would have adapted over the thousands of years, much like how our people have adapted it into a tourism site by adding lights, stairs, and other forms of infrastructure. For this reason, the original purpose of ancient sites is difficult to determine. Whatever the function, the amount of precision and resources poured into the Great Pyramid prove that its purpose was highly important and functional. There are two main categories of theories that depict the function, as either a tomb or a record of knowledge. The dominating mainstream theory is that the pyramid was constructed as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, yet the only piece of empirical evidence connecting him to the Great Pyramid is the graffiti drawn in red paint reading Khufu inside the king's chamber. The graffiti discovered in the 1800s has yet to be carbon dated. This one piece of evidence is the only string holding together the dating, function, and possessor. Many mathematicians have analyzed the dimensions, ratios, orientation, and other features seemingly encoded within the Great Pyramid. These theories are heavily scrutinized as simple coincidences, but I will quickly list some of the findings. The length of the base equals 365.242 cubits, which just happens to be the length of an earthly year right down to a quarter day. The surface of the four sides divided by the surface of the base equals the golden number, one of the key principles in aesthetics and design. By dividing the half perimeter by the total height, we get the golden number squared. Another popular theory is that the Great Pyramid served as a repository of knowledge. In 2017, a hidden void at least 100 feet long was discovered above the Grand Gallery through the use of advanced cosmic ray imaging. The survey method records the behavior of subatomic particles called muons, which penetrate the rock and pinpoint open spaces. The hidden void could be holding the theorized library of knowledge, records, and artifacts. Other theories include that the function was a tool for astrology, a water pump, protection from natural disasters, or a working almanac. The Giza Plateau Mapping Project investigated the social and economic structure that supported the great endeavor. Over 150,000 plant and animal remains were excavated from the area and analyzed. The project revealed a well-planned settlement on the Giza Plateau divided into 30 areas containing mud brick galleries, bakeries, and craft workshops. The 4 sets of mud brick galleries holding 8 subset galleries in each are thought to have functioned as a type of sleeping quarters and barracks for rotating shifts of pyramid workers. More than a dozen bakeries are attached to the galleries. Emmer wheat and hulled barley are plentiful in the area and were used to make bread and beer. This makes sense because nearly 60% of the 500,000 sherds analyzed came from bread molds. Remains of beer jars are the second most common pottery type. Other remains indicate a diet of mainly pulse seeds, fig fruits, cattle, sheep, goats, and catfish. There was no evidence supporting the hunting of these animals. The overall low density and number of plant remains and species indicates that food preparation, fuel use, and the disposal of fuel were specialized in routine activities. Small silos, ash-filled chambers, and the highest density of food remains are found in the gallery, suggesting that residents stored their own food and cooked for themselves. Unlike many other ancient Egyptian settlements, animal dung was not used for fuel and cooking. Instead, they used acacia wood, which is a high-quality, slow-burning fuel. Because of the substantial manpower, time, resources, and organization required to create not only the Great Pyramid, but the other structures around it, Egyptians were thought to be highly sophisticated and civilized. The central government set in place holding extensive powers as well as the long periods of prosperity was key in the Egyptians' successful projects. The stories in Exodus categorizing pyramid workers as slaves forced into labor have been unanimously discounted by both historians and archaeologists. The high level of organization, craftsmanship, dedication, and living spaces points towards a willing and devoted group of people. Egyptian is the oldest known indigenous language in Egypt. Outside of Sumer, written records of the Egyptian language have been dated to 5,500 years ago, making it one of the oldest recorded languages in the world. The language is thought to have originated from areas in Berber and Semitic, with languages like Arabic, Amharic, and Hebrew. The Old Kingdom developed three forms of literary genres, including religious poetry, sapiential instructions, and the biography. Here is what the Egyptian language would have sounded like. The Nile River is the longest river in the world at just about 7,000 kilometers and was pertinent to every part of Egyptian life. It provided water, food, transportation, and fertile soil. Rainfall was almost non-existent, so Egyptians had to rely on the Nile flooding to sustain their crops and provide moisture. A god by the name of Hapi was known as the god of the Nile and was greatly honored by the people. Life on earth was viewed as a small piece of an eternal journey. The Egyptians believed that the dead could reach a paradise or heaven and live forever. In order to navigate the underworld, they believed that one must uphold the principles of harmony by understanding one's actions would affect other lives and the operation of the universe. These key principles resulted in a society of dependence and balance, all working together towards the same thing: harmonious existence. Prolonged military campaigns beyond the borders were shunned in fear of dying and not getting proper rights for the continued journey after life on Earth. Old Kingdom Egypt is often referred to as the Great Age of Pyramid Building. Unfortunately, the flourishing times came to an end, and so did the large monument projects. This is when the Old Kingdom ended and the first intermediate period began. Scholars agree that the latter years of Old Kingdom were marked by economic decline and a breakdown in the central government, but there is still great debate over whether the Old Kingdom abruptly collapsed or simply faded away. For a while, it was thought that the end of the Old Kingdom was abrupt and catastrophic, but the majority view today is that a full-on collapse never occurred. The idea of a sudden collapse came from specific ancient texts that depict a drought, foreign invasions, and famine. While climate data has revealed a long-lasting drought beginning the first intermediate period, scientists believe that climate stress affected different parts of Egypt in different ways. The drought was thought to be gradual enough that society adapted without major disruptions. Unfortunately, there is a lack of information, making it difficult to judge the drought's overall impact. The basis of the Old Kingdom's demise is interpreted from a text by the name of Admissions in Power. A part of the text reads, "Everywhere, barley had perished, and men are stripped of clothes, spice, and oil. Everyone says, there is none. The storehouse is empty, and its keepers stretched on the ground." The earliest versions of the text dates back to about 800 years after the event it proposes. Many scholars now believe that the texts were part of a genre devoted to upholding the power of the Middle Kingdom pharaohs by frightening subjects of the terrible consequences of life without a central government, a genre that we see carried on throughout all of Egypt. Without a doubt, Egypt is one of the strongest and most innovative civilizations to have ever walked the earth. Unlike other great civilizations, their reign lasted thousands of years. As one of the first advanced civilizations, they were able to create magnificent monuments that archaeologists, engineers, and scientists still can't wrap their heads around. How did they do it? With all of our advanced technology and knowledge, the answers are somehow unknown. Fortunately, there are still so many clues hiding beneath the sand waiting to be found. Hopefully, the void inside the Great Pyramid holds some of those valuable clues that will help us come closer to solving the mystery. Thank you.